form of food sizzled and spit on the stove, and thick waves of suds poured out of the dishwasher. A cat had climbed halfway up the inside of the screen door and was howling for escape. The refrigerator door stood open, creating an annoying electronic warning buzz. Meanwhile, cans of soda were slowly rolling out and hitting the floor. Now and then, one burst open and shot carbonated beverage across the walls. A cloud of black smoke was emanating from the toaster, and the smell of burning bread was in the air.
"You see what I mean?"
the man shouted above the din.
"Where do I start?"
Whatever was sizzling on the stove suddenly burst into tall orange flames, which shot toward the ceiling. She gaped. The gates of hell might have looked something like this. Sara took it all in and suppressed the scream of horror that wanted to push its way up her throat. This was no time to panic. She had to be cool, calm, collected. But she wasn't perfect. "Oh my goodness! What?" she cried, knowing there was going to be no answer until disaster had been headed off at the pass. "Are you crazy?" He spread out his hands and shook his head.
"Help!"
he said. She looked at him. He was actually waiting for her to tell him what to do. She gulped. He wasn't the type. She knew that instinctively. But here he was asking for assistance. From her. Help indeed. She pushed back the panic and tried to think clearly. Wait. She knew all these items intimately. The situations taken one at a time were all things she'd dealt with before. Darn it all, she could handle this. Suddenly she realized it was true. She could take command. Why not? He was obviously clueless. She grabbed his arm. "Okay," she shouted, in order to be heard above the din. "Turn off the dishwasher. I'll take care of the fire." He turned to look at it. The flames appeared fiery, leaping higher every minute.
"You will?"
he said doubtfully. She didn't waste any more time. The lid to the frying pan was lying on the floor. She reached down to grab it, took a deep breath and plunged forward, firmly slamming it down on the pan, smothering the flames almost instantly. Quickly turning the knob for the gas, she doused its fuel, and then she took a deep breath of relief.
"Hey,"
he said, looking impressed. "The dishwasher?" she reminded him, jerking her head in that direction. They were going to be swimming in suds in no time if he didn't stop the flow. She could just picture the two of them waltzing across a slippery floor and landing on their backsides.
"Right,"
he said. He actually looked like he knew what he was doing, so she headed for the washing machine at the far end of the kitchen. It was doing a spin cycle, but it was unbalanced and creating a terrible noise as it bounced around. Reaching out with a strange new confidence, she snapped off the juice. Like a crazed wind-up toy coming back to sanity, it began to wind down its banging cascade.
"How do I turn this thing off?"
he was calling to her as he peered at the knobs and buttons on the dishwasher. So she'd been wrong. He had no idea what he was doing. But wasn't that obvious by now? She strode over and slapped the off switch as she passed, never missing a beat, on her way to the refrigerator. There she caught the last two cans before they hit the floor, unended them, placed them on a shelf, and closed the door. The awful noise from the washing machine had stopped. The sizzle was dying down in the frying pan. The refrigerator alarm had faded away, and the suds were slowing down. She looked at the toaster. A black cloud still hovered over it, but nothing new was burning. At least he seemed to have unplugged it on his own, so that was taking care of itself by now. However, the smoke alarm it had probably triggered was shouting a warning over and over. "Evacuate! Evacuate! There is smoke in the basement! Evacuate!" She looked at him for an explanation, and he shook his head.
"There is no basement,"
he told her.
"The thing's gone crazy."
"How do you turn it off?" she asked him, knowing there had to be a way, and knowing at the same time that he wasn't going to know what that was.
"You got me."
She hesitated. It was up so high she couldn't fan it with a towel like she usually did with hers.